Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the National At-Home Dad Network's live webinar series. Please bear with me. We're trying out some new software today, so if things move a little slow or you watch me get confused, well, I'm learning as I go. Our guest today, we have our newly elected president of the organization, Keith Nagel. Our former president, Jonathan Heisey Grove, finished his term on the board at our previous convention, and we thank him greatly for all of his service. He put up with us for a good long time and did some wonderful stuff for the organization. At our last board meeting, we had our officer elections, and we elected Keith Nagel, the former vice president, to be our president. A little background: Keith lives in Madison, Wisconsin. He's been an at-home dad since 2014. He's got two sons who are 5 and 7. That can't be right. 2 cats and a really amazing wife. Oddly enough, before becoming a stay-at-home dad, Keith was a zookeeper for 10 years, working with tigers, lions, bears, and I'm sure a bunch of other animals. Keith has been a pleasure to work with the last 4 years. He and I ran for the board together in Minneapolis for the first time. But without further ado, I'm going to bring Keith onto the call, and we can move on from here. Hey, Keith, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Matt?
New software, stress. But, I'm sure I'll figure the new toys out eventually. We've got some people watching live. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to enter in the comments wherever you happen to be watching. We are currently live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn all at the same time. So anybody who wants to throw up any comments, they are showing up for us here, and we can post them on the feed if we choose to. In the meantime, first of all, congratulations, Keith.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what convinced you that you wanted to run to be president?
Like Matt, I came onto the board in Minneapolis, so 2019. And after that, I took over vice president pretty quickly and started out as sponsorship chair, and then evolved into getting much more involved in the convention. I helped put on Minneapolis. I enjoyed doing that with Chris Brandenburg at the time. And then since then, I've gotten more and more involved in the convention every year. So started out, by switching up our RFP process, which is short for request for proposal, so that we would actually bid it to the city, and then the cities would send us hotels back instead of reaching out to each hotel individually. So doing some of those things kind of got me much more involved into the board. And when JHG was not going to run, I just kind of seemed that we should seemed like a good fit to just kind of step into that role.
Absolutely. And we have had a couple of questions submitted ahead of time, but the first one is the most obvious one. With the new president taking over the organization, the first question is always going to be, what's on your mind? What kind of vision do you have going forward from where we are to where you want to be?
So the board has changed a lot since 2019. I mean, we all went through 2020. So we, as a board, have gotten stronger. We, as an organization, have gotten stronger. We have a lot more volunteers offering the board their time, which helps the board focus on some bigger picture goals. And we have some goals that we've achieved. We are working on our pillars of family advocacy, community education, support. When I joined in 2019, we didn't have a podcast. We didn't have a webinar. We still had the mental health check-ins. And I think book club started around that time. But a lot of what we're doing now serves our members through those pillars. So webinars like these, providing education to our members about our organization, as well as people coming on, other guests to learn skills. Our community is clearly Home Dad Con. It's one of the biggest part of going to Home Dad Con is the community, but of course we do education there. We address advocacy a lot of times at the convention, how we can be advocates, as well as using that convention to show to others who we are, what we stand for. That definitely is a part of our advocacy, is that convention, what the press we get from that. And then I'd say that our support pillar is supported by our mental health check-in for sure. And so what I would like us to do is, we're doing great on that aspect, but I would really like our organization to start partnering with other organizations. Like, how can we grow from being kind of an insular organization and reach out to other organizations and say, here's what we do. We like what you're doing. How can we work together and kind of grow our community of fathers and fatherhood underneath that umbrella?
Now, are there any like particular, like moonshot organizations that you would love to be working with?
I mean, of course, fatherhood.gov is one that we've tried to reach out to before. I think we'll continue to do that. But there are also smaller ones that, for the longest time, we've had a great relationship with City Dads, Father's Eve. These are organizations that are kind of perennial partners of ours. But it's also looking at, like, we should retouch base with Dad University, who was a sponsor of Phoenix, and trying to keep those relationships that we've already established going, and keep that conversation going back and forth. I have a call next week with the Company of Dads. I don't know if you guys have seen them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Paul Sullivan. We're going to talk about, he has a thing that he likes to call them lead dads. And so we're going to have a conversation about what's the difference between an at-home dad and a lead dad? And, because we have redefined our organization from stay-at-home dads to at-home dads, and to make ourselves, more welcoming to the dads who are primary caretakers of their children. So we're gonna have that conversation, see where that goes, how we can assist each other. We are currently working with, we've had conversations with Ecomundo about their fatherhood survey. I saw that Al threw that in the chat there.
Danny jumping in quick.
Yep, we've had that back and forth, and it's a matter of just keeping that going. I know that they have a webinar coming up this month, so I got to put it on my calendar, plan to attend, and you just kind of keep those relationships going. I feel like a lot of the times when the board changes over, sometimes we lose those conversations, and we want to make sure that we don't do that and we keep in touch.
Well, I can tell you, you're going to have a blast talking to Paul. Paul Sullivan and I met when I went out to LA to do the roundtable that Equimundo put together with representatives of different fatherhood groups from around the country. And that was where I met Paul. I think I've actually been one of his featured lead dads when he first started doing his network. Now, Arvis came out with a question. I did ask him to clarify a little bit because he was asking, do you have to tame the goals that you have for the network? And I wasn't familiar with the term, and he's pointed out that any big goals that may seem to be bigger than achievable might need to be tamed. And do you have any of those like big moonshot goals that you believe we can achieve despite what people may think otherwise?
The board always has big ideas, and as a nonprofit, a lot of the times what stops us from achieving those big ideas is money, and the funding of the organization. We have a $35 membership fee. Those have to cover our costs, like insurance, our business cost, our legal cost. Like it has to cover those costs, and we are looking into, we will be coming out with a budget very soonish, I'd say within the next month or two, as we close out the year, that looks at like, what is our annual expenses every year, every month. Let's really break down that budget, see where we have money, because there are things that the organization could be doing, and like a big shot idea or big goal is really defending our trademark of Dads Don't Babysit,
Yeah,
because there are lots and lots of other t-shirts of Dads Don't Babysit out there on the internet, and I've tried to do it myself. I've gone and I've sent cease to desist letters, and it is just a time suck. And you can employ an agency that will do that for you. And really, as an organization that owns a trademark, we should be defending it. But
absolutely.
it comes down to money. So it's something that we need to look into more, find out what those costs are. But it is, and figure out what we're already spending. Do we have the room to do that? Because if we can defend that trademark, then we can use it better, and we can, use it in a way that helps fund the organization. Now, that may not seem like a big goal, but it is something that would help the organization.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And others have talked about like doing a virtual convention as well as an in-person convention. That's a big goal. That's a big time commitment for the board. We already put on one convention every year, an in-person one. We are getting much, much better about planning that in advance. I'll say that we had our schedule set this year in June, which was, as far as I know, the earliest we've ever set a schedule for the convention.
That's
this
the
year,
earliest since I've been involved, which is back to Orlando.
So it really helped the planning. And if we really start planning ahead of time, then there's a chance where, okay, we've already got this convention planned. Maybe we could spend some time planning a virtual one-day convention or something like that. So those are big ideas that I think are out there, and the board always has ideas. The question is, do we have the time? Do we have the bandwidth to put towards it? And do we have the funds to do that? So a lot of the times when we're reaching out to other organizations, like, let's figure out, like, do they do in a virtual convention? Maybe we can partner with them, and maybe you can achieve that big goal by helping other organizations with their reach or with the production of it, and increasing our bandwidth by partnering with other organizations.
Yeah, I mean, for those that were with the organization back in 2020, when the plague hit, obviously we pivoted because we had an in-person convention planned in Cincinnati that year that we had to postpone by a year to make sure that we weren't inviting people to a super spreader event. And we did do a one-day virtual convention. And it was a lot of work. I mean, it was not something that we just kind of pulled out with a day or two of background. I mean, we put almost as much work into that as we would into an in-person convention. I mean, less food involved, but
Yeah.
Now, this is an interesting question because I know that you worked on the sponsorship committee for a very long time, and it has always been a trial to work to get sponsors, keep sponsors, and work with sponsors.
Yes. So that was the first thing when I joined the board, we didn't have a sponsorship chair at the time. So I just stepped into that role. I would say that a lot of what I've done on the board is find what do we need to do, and then I will step in and work on those things. So it started out with sponsorship. And when you have time to do it, I think you can find those sponsors. For instance, when we were looking at Cincinnati, I went and Googled Cincinnati companies like HQs, like who is in Cincinnati. Then I would go to their website, and then I would research on their website, how do you apply for grants, for sponsors? And that led to Sam Adams sponsoring us in Cincinnati. And it led to us visiting them at the tasting room. So there are steps you can take. Again, it comes down to the bandwidth. So since I've taken on more of the convention, I've not spent as much time on the sponsor aspect. Sponsors always come to us. I will say that Turf Valley has been a sponsor for the last 2 years. They've indicated interest in continuing that relationship with us. They did approach us 2 years ago. So a lot of it is organizations, corporations reaching out to us because our footprint and our, knowledge of us is getting larger. Which helps us get those sponsors. I would say that if we have any probable sponsors in our sites, we've in the past partnered with car seat manufacturers, because obviously we're a target audience. When you think about sponsors, it's looking at who is our target sponsors. We've partnered with Movember before in the past, and they've given us some money to promote their November events. So it's using the brain and thinking like, okay, who would want to work with us and who do we want to work with? That is in line with our inclusion statement and our mission and purpose.
So we got a couple of questions here that tie in pretty strongly together. From I'll stay at home, we've got, what are your thoughts on supporting the struggles of fathers who are part of marginalized communities like kids with special needs? And also at the same time, we have Tony Hernandez asking about what are your thoughts about the wider inclusion of the LGBTQIA plus community of dads and their families.
I think that we as a board have come a long way. I mean, my first convention was in Portland. And I think Portland had a pretty decent push towards that way. And then I think every convention we have had a speaker that tries to bring forward some of those marginalized fathers. And I think part of the way that we can help in that is by finding these partners. So for an example, in Milwaukee, we reached out to the Fatherhood Initiative and offered them a scholarship. We also reached out to Open Families, which was an LGBTQIA organization in Milwaukee, offered them a scholarship ticket as well to attend. I know that the Open organization did send a father to the convention. The Milwaukee Fatherhood Initiative, the runner of that actually came to our convention. Daryl, I think some of you met Daryl there at the convention. He spoke. And then actually this last Saturday, I went to his Milwaukee Summit here
Nice.
in Milwaukee. So, being there and giving that representation, talking to some people there about what they do to help their community and what we can do to really make their organizations, like, lift them up and make their messages louder, amplifying it. That's the word I was looking for. Amplifying their message. And I think that we can do that outside of just at the convention. Convention is our biggest thing. We like to bring speakers there. We like to hit our advocacy pillar in there, both advocating for us, but also how can we as fathers, especially involved fathers, advocate in our community for other marginalized communities that are in our area. Because we have, dads who are dads of kids with special needs. And I am not one of those. Luckily I do not. So I don't know what their experience is, and it would be good to find out what their experience is, how I could help them. How do I teach my kids to involve their kids when they're at school, and how to make friends with them, and do those kinds of things. And those are kind of the advocacy pillars that I think we are trying to strive for and try to bring to our dads here.
Now, tying into that same question, Arvis brought up the fact that there are men out there who want to become better dads, but they're in dire need of guidance. I know that the idea has been bounced around in passing on the board in the past, but will there be any formal mentorship program or that type of thing for dads who may need that? Because again, that would be a great opportunity for some of the dads out there who do parent kids with special needs, to be able to mentor those of us who don't have exposure to that world, in helping us and our kids better navigate it.
We have talked about mentors in the past, and I will say that the closest we probably got was in Phoenix. We did age-based groups, age-based breakouts. And I know that's been done, I think, at conventions before, but in Phoenix, it was definitely a good way of having somebody who's been through it lead a little group session for those who are headed into that. I can say that we are already talking about possibly doing that in St. Louis and returning to that with the idea of mentorship on our mind, of using our experienced dads in how to teach the younger ones. Now, coming up with a mentorship program involves a little more coordination as far as connecting a mentor with someone else, whether they be what's the parameters for that? Do they need to be local? Do they need to be the same time zone? Do they need? There's lots of details there. I think we could do that. That is a big idea that the org could absolutely look into, and that's something that maybe we'll talk about at our board retreat when we
Mhm.
that's a big idea that we could really nail down the details as far as a mentorship.
Seem to have lost your audio, Keith. Keith? Keith? I have lost your audio.
Okay, hang on.
There we go. You're back.
That's better. All right. It disconnected for a second.
Fair. I was like, wait a minute. He got quiet. Now, we have a broader question here. And you addressed a little bit of this in your opening when you talked about the different pillars that we're doing a pretty good job with and the ones that we need to work towards. But I don't know if you have anything more specific that you can add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now our network strengths are that we have really branched out from just the convention. I know I'm talking about the convention a lot. That's what I've been working on a lot. But we've really branched out. So, having a weekly podcast gives members a way to access our community every week, and some people love podcasts, some people love watching it on YouTube, and it's available to both of those people if they want. We have the webinars every month, like this one, where if you want to learn about what the organization is doing, you can do that here. Of course, we have the Dad Lounge, which Arvis hosts, which is, one of our biggest community builders, is every Monday, Thursday. People can come on and they can just really talk about what is going on in their life, or even just tell dad jokes. Like we have really branched out from the convention and made it a year-long organization and not just the convention, which I think is one of our biggest strengths. And like I said, the way we could grow is by being more inclusive to those marginalized communities. Stay-at-home dads, there is a certain financial aspect to it, being able to afford to stay home, which means that not all of our members are in that situation. We have retired dads, we have veteran dads, we have disabled dads. We have them in our community, but some of attending a convention can cost a lot of money, and that is why we have the scholarship, and that is why we offer that scholarship, so that those dads in our community that cannot afford to come to the convention have a way of making it there. And I'm just glad that we have expanded that community opportunity outside of the convention.
Absolutely. Now, Artis brings up a good point, and Lord knows this is something that we've talked about over the years among the board members in general. And that's the fact that, if you look at our Facebook page, we have a closed network or a closed Facebook page that has well over 3,000 dads on it. In light of those well over 3,000 dads, there's about 150, 160 of them that are actual paid members of the network. So, about 5%. What are thoughts and ideas about bridging the gap between, the active paid members of the organization and the ones that are, in the Facebook page, they're a part of the community, but haven't taken that next step in membership?
Some of that is that for the longest time, our organization has been operating with membership tied to convention. And so we, as a board, chose 2 years ago to split that. So you didn't have to attend the convention to be a member, but you have to be a member to attend the convention. So by doing that, we've already increased our annual membership. Our membership has grown by doing that. by splitting it up so that people can join us as a member, get access to our recordings, get access to our members store where you can buy past convention t-shirts, getting access to the minutes, being able to vote, and if you don't attend the convention, still being able to vote for board members. That was one of our biggest steps we took to address this gap in our larger newsletter of 5,000 people and our Facebook group of 4,000 people to I believe we're at 150 members currently.
I think last time I checked, we were about 154.
154. So that was the first step to doing that. I would say the second step was adding a renewable membership that just auto renews. As that continues, that membership will continue to grow because it is now something that they don't have to remember to renew every year, so that our numbers will grow with those auto renewals as well. And then again,
kind of like the NPR support thing that my wife and I do. Like it's a monthly thing that just comes out and we don't even think about it anymore.
Exactly. And when we did divorce it from the convention, the membership, we also asked ourselves, how do we deliver more for the membership? And part of that is why we started podcasts, why we started Dad Lounge. A lot of those things also came out of COVID, but we've turned them into benefits and reasons why that $35 is worth what it is, and our organization is worth what it is.
All right, now we're going to put you on the spot because Al Stays Home says, speaking of, tell us a dad joke.
Now you got me thinking. I need to think of a dad joke that's appropriate.
All right, we'll let you think for a little bit, and I'll move on to one of the questions that was emailed to me earlier in the week. Dale Van Vler, I love you, Dale. I have so much difficulty with your last name. It's Van Vlera. He asked a question of, what is a personal goal, not necessarily involving the network, that you want to accomplish in the coming year?
Personal goal for myself.
Yeah.
I have a whole notebook of personal goals. I'm currently organizing this office that's you see blurred out behind me. Personal goals. I'm trying to learn how to tailor my own clothes, which I actually cut and posted the Sewing for At-Home Dads last week. So if you are a member, you can actually go online and take a look at the Sewing for At-Home Dads that's now in the members page. She gives some good tips on just general sewing, but I'm looking at, how do I tailor a shirt that fits me better? And how do I do that to them in my entire closet? Those kind of things. That's a personal thing that I'm working on. I am up for, we have 2 years left on our board.
Yeah.
2 years left on our.
You and I, this year and next.
Yeah. My kids are 7 and 9 at this point. And so I am looking at possibly, finding like a real job. Not that this isn't a real job. It's definitely a real job. But as the kids get older at 7 and 9, they are more independent, and I'm finding more time for myself. And I thoroughly enjoyed coordinating the convention this year. It coming up with a production schedule and just doing the whole convention. I'm looking into pivoting my career from zookeeping to possibly event planning. So that's a long-term goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is really, really cool. That is cool. Now, what do you think is the most important thing in your role as president?
I will say that I think the most important thing as the president, having watched JHG do it, is being the voice and the head of the organization. So when I was a vice president, one of my roles that I took the most serious was anytime that there was a connection with the board, for the media or from the press, I, as a vice president, would organize it. And then when it was time, I made sure that the president was available to step up and do it. So, all Milwaukee, I was coordinating with the press and stuff, but when they show up on site, I make sure that I am running everything so that the president can step up and do those interviews and, advocate for the organization and make it known who we are, what we can do for you, and how you can help us. And the president is definitely that person. So as I switch from vice president to president, I'm aware that I need to make sure that I have a vice president, who I think Danny Mercer is going to do a great job of doing this, is he will be able to handle those things so that I can go out front and talk. And he is the guy in the background, making sure that the park is still getting cleaned up and the general things are still running. That's the role of that vice president. And so in this transition, I think the most important part for that president is really to be the representation of the organization.
Now, Nick Hargis just now chimed in with a really, really great question. Many other board members, as you can see, past and present, we are an all volunteer organization. Nobody's getting paid. Nobody. How are we currently working towards incorporating more volunteers and delegating out those roles and tasks?
I think that part of that is recognizing who our volunteers are. And I would say that last year we started doing that in the newsletter. We started highlighting some of the volunteers that are working behind the scenes in the network that I think most of our members didn't necessarily know about. And we talked about that as a board. Is one way to get more volunteers is to recognize those that are volunteering for us and what they're doing. And the other thing is we also, as a board, I think in the past used to just really rely on the board. So if there was a task, we were like, all right, what board member is going to pick it up? And what we have started doing, speaking of Dale, is actually he will be our volunteer coordinator. And this is something we've talked about, is that Dale will hopefully, I actually used it just last week in order to edit these recordings that we have from the home deck on. It's a time suck. You got to take that time to go through and cut the audio and cut the video and put in slides and put in graphics. And having done it the last 3 years, it's a big time suck. And if you guys want to see them, we need to do them. And so I went to Dale and I said, does anybody have any video editing experience that would be willing to volunteer? And he reached out to the organization and Jeremy Roadruck responded back that he'd be interested. So I've already contacted Jeremy and we're going to start working on that. So, I mean, that's just an example of we have come a long way and started reaching out to our network for volunteers and saying, hey, we have 150 members currently that all have skills that we don't necessarily know about. And one of the best ways to lead is to find out what the skills are of the team that's below you and make sure to empower those people to use those skills. Because if they have those skills, they probably enjoy doing it. And someone who enjoys doing the work is going to be much happier than and come up with a better product if they actually enjoy doing that. So we really want to empower the people who want to volunteer, and we want them to do the things that they're good at and that they want to do.
So going back to another question that was emailed in by Dale, and here's the doozy. What do you think is going to be the most difficult part of being president?
I think probably the most difficult part for me will be choosing not to take something on, because I wear a lot of hats and I have to hand some of these hats off. Like I cannot be the sponsor lead anymore. Someone's got to take that from me, and I got to delegate actually to somebody. And we are a board of 9 members. We all vote on things. The president does not just make unilateral rules. It's a whole board that agrees on things. But as the president, I definitely, to that point, like I want to empower the board members and volunteers who have those skills. So if someone is looking to and feels okay about reaching out and emailing sponsors and just being on top of that thing, then that's great. And I want to find that out. So I plan on having one-on-one conversations with each board member about what their skills are, what their desires are, maybe what skills they want to learn. I knew nothing about WordPress. Now I edit our website because I put that hat on when we needed that hat to be put on. So the biggest thing for me is probably going to be stepping back from some of the things I do and finding people who will take them on and enjoy that.
Yeah. Now Dane just popped in with a really, really great question. And that, what can they do to help us? Step one, I'll answer that one for you. Reach out to Dale. Let Dale know if there's a particular skill you have. All of us did something before we became stay-at-home dads. Let Dale know what it is that you do. And that's kind of what Dale's position is finding places to plug those skill sets in where needed. But beyond that, any other like big needs that you can think of off the top of your head?
I will say that I would say the reason we went to Milwaukee was because Greg Clapp proposed we come to Milwaukee. And I've proposed this before that for Home Dad Con, if you would like us to come to your city, there's a proposal that you could do to send to the board. Because we come up with a list of cities that we'd like to visit. Some of that is based on where we've been before. We want to reach our larger community around the nation. So, I mean, as a community supporting, us and the board to be giving us those ideas, like this idea of a mentorship program. I love it. If you've got details that you would like to see in that program, that'd be awesome too, to send us those things. And we have committees. We just created the 5K committee, which Kyle is heading up because we wanted to run a 5K for quite a while and we finally got it started in Milwaukee, but it requires a committee to look at permits and routes and medals and all those things. And so we definitely have committees that as a community, if you wanted to be on and help support the rest of the board, that's awesome. And Dale, I think we can get Dale a list of those committees. And like Matt said, if you have skills that you had before, or to my point of wanting to switch from a zookeeper to an event planner, if there are skills that you are looking to get experience in or do as a volunteer now, so that later on, maybe if you wanted to transition into something, you could use that experience you get by volunteering for the board currently.
Someone just asked if we could go ahead and supply them with Dale's contact information to help make it easier for them. And I'm about to pop his email address up on the screen for everybody. Again, bear with me, new software. Let's see if that worked. There we go. Yeah. So you can reach out to Dale at that email address at any point. He is our volunteer coordinator. Please reach out to him early and often. We are always looking for people. And as Keith said, all of us are picking up odd skills. Not only did Keith learn to edit our website, he taught me how to post board minutes so that he didn't have to. Little things like that do make a difference. Now, back to some of the comments that we've gotten and some of the questions that are coming in live. Arvis brought up a good point, and it is true. The drug problem is at an all-new high. Again, I'm a little out of touch. I have not heard of Trank or Blues, but I am guessing that they're not good. I'm sure that they're here in a college town where I live, in Durham, North Carolina. But he's asking about any support provided for dads who may be struggling with various addictions.
I would say that we, the mental health check-in could be that, but I say that with the caveat of I don't lead that group. And I would want to talk to that group about where that is. I mean, mental health is mental health, regardless of where it came from. And it's really just a check-in to make sure that you're okay. Now that's just using what we currently have. you know, we could, again, these are big ideas, and we could definitely look into support groups. We can also look into, like I said, those partnered organizations. Like we could look for dad organizations that deal with addiction and find out from them, you know, how can we partner? Or if we have some of these dads, how do we direct them your way? And how do we make these connections? Because, you know, as part of that, our education pillar, this is actually a great thing that we could be doing. Um, I would say that we don't necessarily have the expertise as the board or as an organization to really address the fine details of drug addiction. So it's a matter of finding the organizations that do. Um, you know, so like Dad's Move is a great example of an organization that we now have had a partnership with for the last 2 years about IEPs and dealing with schools. And that was something that we talked about in Phoenix as something that none of us really had any information about. And so we went out and found an organization that did, and they've been a great partner with us. And so, you know, this is a great example of, all right, we need to find one that can deal with addiction. And I know that we've had maybe some speakers in the past, I think, have come in and talked about addiction. And Matt, I know that you yourself are on a personal journey currently.
Well, I was about to let people know. In regards to that, I will say stay tuned. My classes begin not this weekend, but next weekend. I'm actually being certified as a certified substance abuse peer support specialist. It will probably be early 2024 before I am officially credentialed. But once I have credentials, it is my intention to start an actual support group through the network, but not until I've been trained and I'm actually qualified and know what I'm doing, so to speak. Because, you know, we don't want to steer people in the wrong direction or, you know, do harm in any way.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, we absolutely want to provide those avenues. And the fact that Matt, you know, has a personal interest in it and is pursuing that, and then that's a skill that we as the organization could use. That's awesome. You know, Matt may not always be around, so we would just like we at the convention strive to have a mental health counselor in those sessions when we are in person at the convention. Those are the things that we as a board definitely want to try and make sure is that we always have a specialist who is licensed and trained to deal with those particular issues, because we don't want to lead anyone without that kind of experience behind us.
All right, so to lighten things up again, I'm going to go back. Have you got your dad joke yet?
No, I do not.
You're not getting off the hook, man. I will not. Before the end of this, you're going to tell one.
I know.
Continuing to put you on the hook, Kyle Denny, one of our recently elected board members, points out that JHG, the previous president, set a precedent as a finisher in our first ever Dads Run This House 5K. Is that a tradition that you are ready to commit to continue?
I will say that I ran the virtual 5K because I referee soccer. That is my kind of self-care / earning money aspect. So I will go out and I will referee high school soccer. Having done that, I run about a 5K every time. It's just not necessarily in a straight line.
Right.
I'm definitely one of those people who only runs when being chased by a bear or in the middle of some kind of sporting event I enjoy. I will say I could definitely come out and run it. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'll just tell you that.
No one enjoys running, and if they tell you otherwise, they're lying. I do triathlons, and I don't enjoy running. Now, this also comes in. You mentioned that the refereeing soccer is one of your stress reliefs.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you do to like blow off steam or manage that stress?
I will say that one of the biggest managements of my stress, and I saw, sir, some of you saw me carrying this thing around at the convention, is it's my to-do lists. taking things out of your head and putting it on paper help immensely with stress. And it's something that I have really just started doing a couple months ago. And being able to write those thoughts down, so you don't forget them, and two, you can come back to them, and then you can cross them off, which also gives you, the feeling of accomplishment for doing that. So that is one thing. Is I've definitely increased my organization. I've increased my productivity by doing this. It's one of the ways I manage that stress. Soccer season is ending. Physical activity definitely helps with your stress. I work out 4 days a week, which also helps with that stress. My kids being 7 and 9 means less stress because they're in school about 6 or 7 hours a day. Yeah. So that definitely helps a lot. And, of course, there are times of the year where being on the board is a little bit more stressful. But I will say that coming into the convention, if you saw me there running it, I would say I was not stressed at the event. And that has to do with how well we planned it ahead of time, and everything was in place, and we had a production schedule, and there are things that come up and you have to pivot and change those things. But if you focus on how do I make this better, or how do I address the issue in a way that addresses everyone's problems, you can reduce that stress significantly. So, those are some of the things I would do, that I do to.
You said
I just said do. There's a bad joke right there. Those are some of the things that I do to reduce stress, for sure.
Now, one of the participants in our mental health check-ins just reached out to me personally to point out that the mental health meetings are support-oriented. They do try not to offer specific advice, being as how it is a community support group, as opposed to being professional counselors, etc. So just to make everyone aware of that distinction, because it is a pretty strong distinction. Now, Dane has a good question. Has there been any talk about creating more regular online activities for members, things like a game night or a movie watch party?
There have not.
But those both sound good.
They sound great. Yeah, those are great ideas. I think some of that can naturally come through the Discord, which is something that we have also added in the last 2 years. We started Discord with Phoenix as the convention kind of pre-planning and pre-coordination. And I think that was a great addition to the convention. I think a lot of people were able to plan activities and game nights and the D&D, all of that, the communication that opened up to our attendees helped significantly in Phoenix. And so then we decided, all right, well, what do we do? How about we just open that up for the whole community? And then this year we included the Home Dad Con into that same Discord server. And part of that approach was, so any new dads we gained who joined that server are still in that server. We're not deleting, the Phoenix server was a different one. Now it's in the same one. So all those dads are still in there, and they can have those conversations about gaming. If they want to get on and video game together, if we want to organize movie watch parties, we could absolutely do that. I think these are great ideas.
I believe there's a way to actually do a watch party on Discord. Because one of the other groups that I'm involved with, the Athletic Brewing Ambassadors Program, has done a couple of watch parties, and they've done it on Discord. It just means I have to reach out to the leads there and figure out how they did it. And once they explain that to me, we'll figure out whether or not we can do something like that.
Yeah, and there are I've looked into, there's bots for Discord as well that could run a D&D campaign for you and use the bots on Discord.
Before we do that, I'm gonna have to give you a nix on that right there. And as Danny put it very plainly, Dane, who attended Home Dad Con in Milwaukee, is an actual professional dungeon master by trade. He does this for a living. So forget letting a bot on Discord run a game. Like, we want Dane.
Well, again, it's going to come down to does Dane want to volunteer that time?
Right.
You know, and
Never hurts to try to voluntold.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I love those ideas. Like, honestly, Dane, if you want to start a D&D, that's absolutely awesome. Let us know, and then we can put our support behind it. We can also do that, you know, for game nights, for movie watch parties. We can absolutely promote it to our networks, because these are all great ideas, and I would love to see more things led by the community, and not necessarily having to be led by the board.
Absolutely.
Now,
Now,
you know, for example, just an example, the beer share is a great example of something that was not led by the board, that was led by the community, and it has grown to be a big part of Home Dad Con and our primary source of our sponsorship fund. That was something scholarship fund, not sponsorship. Scholarship fund. I mean, that is a great example of a community idea that they put their love and work into, and it has grown into something that is a huge part of the organization now.
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
it is still community led, and we as a board have, you know, are grateful for it, and we want to know how can we support it. So sometimes things start as a community, and they might transition towards a board, or board adjacent, or wherever it is. But the benefits of it to our organization is so large that we as a board want to support those things.
Now, a couple of things. Wrong mouse. Sorry. Two computers and a phone at the same time. It's not good for a 51-year-old. Wait, wrong comment. There we go. Kyle jumped in late. He wanted to know, is there anything in particular, like a singular goal or any direction you hope to head to, or any specific programs you want to see created? Which also ties in to a question that Dale had sent in, saying, is there something that you really want to see the organization do within the next year?
We need to, it's not pretty. It's not a pretty thing. But we as an organization need to really establish not protocols, but you know, like I created a production schedule for this Home Dad Con, right? And this is something that when I leave the board should not go away. So we need to be creating templates on, you know, we started a workbook that was I think in Orlando was the first time we had a workbook.
No, I think Milwaukee was the first time the workbook showed up. I don't remember it being in Orlando.
So we've taken these steps where the workbook started, and then we've built on the workbook, and we've added tabs, and it's gone really good for the planning. But as far as the executing the convention while there, we did a lot of work this year. Like I said, creating that RFP process, and like, how do you do that, and how do you send that to the cities, and just kind of a general template that lives with the board, so that once I leave, those things you can hand them off, and you can hand them off with also like, hey, let's take a day and let's walk through these, and I can answer any questions, and then we can update that handoff again. And so those are things that the board absolutely needs to do, because we have gotten to a really good space where we are operating at a really great level, and I would love us not to go backwards. And I think going without those things, there's a possibility that it could make that slide. So I want to make sure that we continue to grow, but also put up these barriers, and not necessarily barriers, but guides, as Nick is saying.
Nick managed to get the wording a lot better than either one of us could have. Thanks for that, Nick. I was looking for the comment, and I can't find it on the list right now, because again, you guys the participation has been wonderful. I'm loving this new format, but it happened way up and it got away from me. But someone had asked the question of, are you eyeballing any particular roles or directions for some of the members of the board, specifically the 3 new board members who just joined us, which would be Kyle Denny, Chris Griffin, and I'm blanking.
Paul Gordon.
Paul Gordon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, and Paul.
So we did have our elections, and you guys saw the new officers that were elected. And for our treasurer, we actually implemented when Ed was getting ready to leave, was we actually implemented an under treasurer. So it's a board member who basically shadows the current treasurer to learn all the things that a treasurer needs to know, because the treasurer is one of those roles that is underappreciated, but probably one of the most important roles that we have. And so creating the under treasurer role helps that transition, speaking to project guides and handoffables. It was one of the steps that we took. And Paul Gordon has graciously said that he wanted to do that. So he's stepping into that role, and we'll be learning a lot of our treasurer roles and how we pay for the insurance and bill things and work with our accounting service and all those things. And that's
a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So,
and I do want to make sure we give credit where credit is due. Actually, the first time that happened was Ed took over as treasurer and Frank Kuiper stepped down from being treasurer, and he moved into an under treasurer position to help train Ed. And then in the years after, we as a board decided it would be better to flip it and have a more experienced treasurer with someone shadowing them learning. Just wanted to make sure Frank got the credit he deserved, because it was his plan.
So that's definitely one of the ways that they'll be involved. Kyle is, of course, heading up the 5K committee and making sure that the 5K is bigger and better for next year. It was a success this year. We raised over $400 for the Fathers Overcoming Adversity Fund, which is a committee we are also creating as far as how to implement that fund. And then I know that Chris Griffin has already expressed interest in being on the scholarship committee, which Brock served on and Charlie served on, and both of those board members have ended their term. So Chris Griffin stepping in there helps us, because our bylaws do require a board member to be on all of our official committees. So those are the roles that those guys are stepping into currently. And like I said, I plan to have a chat with every board member about what their skills are and what they want to do and what they would like to accomplish, and how we can empower them to do those things. So I just need to schedule those over the next month. In fact, I will be doing that.
All right. Well, we are coming up on an hour here, which is usually about as long as anyone's attention span is for these things. I'm still holding you to it. I'm looking for the dad joke.
All right. So why can't you hear a pterodactyl going to the bathroom?
All right, I'll bite. Why?
Because the P is silent.
There we go. All right. That will totally fly really well with my 6-year-old son. I want to thank everybody who came to join us. I'm really enjoying this new format. This is going to be the format for the webinar as we move forward. Speaking of which, next month's webinar is going to be on Wednesday, November 8th at this exact same time, 12 Eastern and 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm really, really excited. We have Dr. Eliza Pressman coming to join us. She is the host of the Raising Good Humans podcast, which is one of the most popular parenting podcasts out there. She is eminently qualified. She has worked with Mount Sinai. She has done all kinds of wonderful things helping parents out. I think her podcast has over 18 million downloads currently. And she has a book coming out next year called The 5 Principles of Parenting. It's going to be her first parenting book. And she's going to be coming to join us, which is going to be really fun and exciting. We also have a webinar lined up for December for the first time. We've never done one in December previously because of, well, the holidays and people being busy, but I have the opportunity to have Pierce Freelon, who is a Grammy Award nominated musician, political activist, Afrofuturist, and former politician, who has a very, very busy schedule. And when his agent told me that December was what he had available, I'll make December work to have Pierce on. We'll have more information about that one as it comes up. Again, I know you've heard us mention that we have Home Dad Con coming up in October in St. Louis. I believe the dates are October 17th through the 19th.
Yeah.
And that's going to be at the Drury Hotel at the Arch. And literally, it is within like a block or two of the foot of the St. Louis Arch. So we are in the middle of downtown. It's going to be a blast. And again, please tune into the Home Dad Chat podcast. Join us on the Dad Lounge. Come to the webinars, the mental health check-ins. Anywhere that you can participate, please do. And
join the book club.
Yeah, join. Yeah, that's true. The At Home Dad Book Club as well is a great organization. And also for those of you who are watching on YouTube, because it's one of the first times we've ever been able to broadcast live directly to YouTube and LinkedIn. For the people who aren't necessarily on Facebook, go to our website, become a member, and look into our Discord server, because it is a great community that you can be a part of without having to be on Facebook, because I know a lot of people disagree with that.
And answer Arvis's last question here about if I think a pet can help an at-home dad during their day-to-day basis. I would say that a cat helps. I enjoy dogs. I do enjoy dogs, but I will say the added walking of the dog twice a day, the fact that my dog has eaten, I think we're up to 5 TV remotes at this point. When you talk about stress, I don't know that a dog necessarily helps, but a cat takes care of itself.
My kids have been begging for a pet, and I keep reminding them that they can't remember to water an orchid once a week, that Dad is not taking on a pet to raise so that they can pet it when they feel like it. Well, look, and again, thank you guys all for joining us. We really do appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you next month. On behalf of the National At-Home Dad Network, thank you, Keith, for your time. Thank you to everybody who joined us, and we will see you next month.